Philly Boy J back here with another video. And today I'm going to be showing you guys how I make homemade cinnamon rolls. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to get a big bowl, and to that big bowl you're going to add about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and you're going to rub it all up in and around the bowl. Make sure that the bowl is fully coated in vegetable oil. You're going to then get a small bowl. Into that small bowl you're going to add a 1/2 cup of water, and make sure that it's warm water. It has to be warm, not hot, but warm. And you're going to add about a teaspoon of white sugar. Give that a nice stir. And then we're going to add our fast acting yeast. Okay, so this is instant yeast here by Red Star that I'm using, quick rise yeast, and I'm going to add 1 pack. Okay, now in these packs here, that's about 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. Okay, that's how much is in the whole pack. The whole pack is worth about 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. Okay, so don't stir it, just sprinkle it in there and let that yeast activate. Just leave it alone, sit it aside until we're ready to use it again. All right, so just sit that aside, and we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to get a big mixing bowl, and to that mixing bowl you're going to add 1/3 cups of melted butter. Okay, and all of the measurements are in the description below. You're going to add 1 large egg. We're going to add our whole milk. We're going to add our 4 tablespoons of white sugar. And this is just because I want the dough of the actual cinnamon rolls to be sweet as well. Okay, so that's why I add sugar. All right, and we're going to stir that in really well. Make sure that you beat that egg yolk really well. Stir that in like that. Now to our flour we're going to add just 1 teaspoon of salt, and I'm using about 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour to 3 cups. Okay, give that a nice stir. Make sure that the salt is evenly distributed throughout the flour, and then we're going to add our dry mixture to the wet egg mixture. We're only going to add half of the flour first, so don't add all of it, only add half. We're going to get our blender, little hand mixer here, and we're going to blend that in on low speed. And once it looks like that, what we're going to do is we're going to now add our yeast that's been sitting for a while now. So we're going to add that, and make sure that you get the flour down off the sides. You want that all to get in there. Okay, so add your yeast. It don't matter if it's clumpy like that. Okay, and we're going to add the second half of the all-purpose flour, and we're going to blend that again. Blend it in well. Try not to over blend it. Okay, and yes, you can do this with your hands if you want, but you want it to look like that. Very thick but elastic. Okay? So I'm going to just take my fingers and I'm going to pull the dough off of the blender. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this ball of dough to the oil coated bowl, and you're going to make sure that you get the oil on both sides. So just turn it over and rub the ball of dough really well, like that. We're going to cover it with plastic wrap, and we're going to just let this sit for about 2 hours. And when we get back, you're going to notice that it's doubled in size. It's going to rise. Okay, so I'm going to get a pan. I'm going to place it over medium heat, and I'm going to add a half a stick of butter. That's about 4 tablespoons worth of butter. Okay, we're going to let that melt a little bit. We're going to add 4 big tablespoons of brown sugar and about 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon. You can add a little less if you want, but these are cinnamon rolls we're making, so I want there to be enough cinnamon in my cinnamon rolls so we can taste that cinnamon flavor. Okay, so give this a nice stir this in, and that's going to be our filling. A lot of people don't do it this way. They just melt their butter, they place it onto the rolled out dough, and then they add dry sugar to it. But I like to make mine like this, and I also add additional sugar as well. So that's the way you want it to look. That's our filling. Now what you're going to do is you're going to dump out the dough. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the holes on the side. That's how you know that it's going to be really, really moist and tender. Okay. You're going to coat a surface with flour. Okay. So put flour on the surface. And we're going to dump our dough out onto this flour coated surface. Just like that. Then we're going to coat the top of the dough with a little flour as well. So you want a little flour under it and a little flour on top. And then you're going to just smack it. You're going to smack it, or you can punch it. You can beat it up, okay? Press it down, flatten it out with your hands. You don't need a rolling pin, but a rolling pin would make it easier to do. And you want to create like a long rectangular shape, okay? You want it to be like that, all right? You want to roll it out evenly and stretch it out like I'm doing here. Now we're going to add our filling, our brown sugar, cinnamon, and melted butter. Like that there. And I'm just going to sprinkle about another tablespoon worth of brown sugar on top for good measure. Okay. And now we're going to cut off the sides. Not all of it, but we don't need that excess dough right there. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to rub one end down with water. That's like a gluing agent, just so that it sticks. Okay, once we roll it up and press it together. So rub some water down on the sides like that. Make sure you add a nice amount of water. Rub it really well. And then we're going to tuck the ends and make sure that you roll it very tightly like that. Make sure it's very tight and small like that. Then you're going to roll it slowly. Again, do this slowly. You have to be meticulous with this, okay? And we're going to cut off those ends there too. Not going to be using that. So that's where you want it to look. So you're going to get a baking pan, and you're going to rub the baking pan down a little bit with butter or margarine. Just a little, not too much. I think I added just a little too much there. You're going to cut the dough in even shapes like that into however many cinnamon buns you want. Cinnamon rolls, rather. And you're going to sit them in the baking pan like that. Look how pretty they look. Guys, these came out absolutely delicious. They were good. They were very, very good. Look at that. And it don't matter if they're close together. I actually like my cinnamon rolls rather close to each other. Okay, so we're going to let these sit for another, I'll say 30 to 45 minutes. I'll say 45 minutes because it has to rise a little more again. Okay, so you're going to cover it again with more plastic wrap, and you're going to let it sit for about 45 minutes. 30 the least. So cover that with the plastic wrap and let that sit. And then after 45 minutes, you'll notice that they look a little bigger. They risen a bit. And this is the way they're going to look. See? Okay, so you're going to take the plastic wrap off after 45 minutes. And at this moment, you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And you're going to melt a little butter. I say about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter. And so that the cinnamon rolls brown, we're going to drizzle it with butter, or you can brush it with butter, brush the top with butter. You want it to look like that. We're going to put it in the oven for about 30 minutes, maybe 35, or until it's nice and golden brown on top. And while that is baking, we're going to create our frosting. So here is our sugar, and I just call it icing or powdered sugar. Now, the cream cheese is optional. I just like to add that to mine. A lot of people don't like the cream cheese taste that it gives the icing, so you don't have to add it. You're only going to add 1 cup of that sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I say about 3 tablespoons of butter. And if you do want to add the cream cheese, just add a small amount, about 1 tablespoon. Going to get your hand mixer. You're going to blend this in until it's nice and smooth. You're going to add a little milk at a time. You want this to be on the runny side. So add about 2 tablespoons of milk first. Blend it in. And if the icing is still thick and you feel like it's not loose enough, just add 2 more tablespoons of milk until you reach this consistency here. Okay? I'm going to just stir it a little more with a spoon. Press any lumps that might be in there. So that's how loose you want it to be. Not extremely runny, but you want it to be on the runny side. And there is our cinnamon rolls. Nice and tender and brown. And I'm going to pour the icing over. Look at that. Look at it melt. Look at it melt. Look at that frosting. And I add all of it. I want my cinnamon rolls to saturate in this frosting. Now here's what I do. I take my spoon. I use a spoon. And I get all deep down on the sides. I make sure that the frosting gets in on the sides, because sometimes the sides can get just a little crunchy, a little hard. So that's why I like to add the frosting on the sides. Okay, so take your spoon or fork or knife and make sure that you remove the cinnamon rolls from the sides, because it's probably sticking to the sides a little bit, and then pour some of the frosting down on the sides. Okay, to the size of your cinnamon rolls getting that frosting. So yeah, that's the way you want it to look, guys. And these cinnamon rolls look absolutely delicious. Look at these cinnamon rolls. Look absolutely delicious. Now let them sit a little while before I eat them. This here is about a half an hour later. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that, guys. Look how moist it is and how tender and how soft and fluffy this. Oh my gosh. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. Look at that. Look. Homemade cinnamon rolls. Absolutely delicious. And that's the reason why I add a lot of butter, because I think the butter just gives it additional flavor. So I add a little more butter than most people to the filling, and I like to drizzle a nice amount of butter on top. Okay, that helps to soften them and give them that nice buttery flavor. But look at those cinnamon rolls. Hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Homemade cinnamon rolls from Philly Boy J, January 2016. Peace.